The senator from Rhode Island.
It is a very happy coincidence for me that I get to follow my friend Senator Schatz on this topic to oppose the Solar Tariff Congressional Review Act effort that has been mounted on the floor, because I could not agree more with him that this particular episode playing out here on the floor of the Senate today is part of a larger scheme. We begin with the fact that across the United States, the solar industry employs 250,000 workers. It's a big deal. And these are well-paying jobs in an industry that saves families money on their electric bills and decreases our carbon footprint. So, of course, fossil fuel forces oppose it. And that's what we're stuck with now. This fossil fuel attack through this CRA, if successful, would lead to more than $1 billion in retroactive duties on American solar companies. It would cost us 30,000 jobs. It would cost us $4.2 billion in domestic investment. It would lead to the cancellation of 4 gigawatts of solar projects, and it would create an increase of 42 million metric tons of CO2. So, of course, the fossil fuel industry is against all of that. It's for the duties, it's against the jobs, it's against the investment, it's against the solar projects, and it couldn't care less about CO2. So the problem that we have here is that we are in a race against time to solve the climate problem before it gets out of hand. And in this town and in this building, one of the most dangerous things that we face is groupthink. And the current groupthink is that climate change is a manageable problem. It won't get out of control. I don't believe that to be true. I think climate change is extremely dangerous. Dangerous to our economy, dangerous to our ecosystems, dangerous to our well-being. And we're having hearings in the Budget Committee that showcase some of those dangers. The danger of a coastal property values crash that's going to be worse than the 2008 mortgage meltdown. The danger of a similar property values crash in the West, where wildfire risk will have the same effect on properties. The danger of an insurance meltdown because nature won't let insurance companies predict things any longer safely, so they can't insure them any longer because they can't predict, and you have a retraction of the insurance market and all of that means. And last of all, we've got a huge carbon bubble that we've been repeatedly warned is going to pop, and when it does, U.S. fossil fuel assets will be stranded, their value will go to near zero, and there will be an enormous global economic dislocation. These are ideas that have been put forward by huge insurance company executives, by Freddie Mac, by people who study the risk in wildfire areas, by the major sovereign banks of the world. Serious grown-ups are warning of these risks. And up against those serious grown-ups, we have the creepy front groups of the fossil fuel industry denial machine continuing to put poison and nonsense into our ecosystem, into our mental and political ecosystem. That has to stop. Groupthink is dangerous enough. More dangerous, there is a subgroup in the House and in the Senate that has stopped thinking entirely and is just taking marching orders from the fossil fuel industry. The conflict of interest could not be more apparent. It is obvious and plain on its face, and yet the money is there, the political dark money pours in, so they line up and follow them right off the cliff like lemmings. That is even more dangerous than groupthink. Last, this is not the only game that's being played by our fossil fuel industry folks. One of the other things that we're going to have to continue to work on, and what the SEC is working on right now, is what is called ESG requirements put out by corporations. ESG is environment, social, and governance. And what this is corporate America deciding that it's really important to its stockholders to make sure they are good citizens, and that the likeliest measures of bad citizenship will be bad environmental practice, bad social practice, and bad governance. And so they intend to clean that up. And they're experts who've looked at E and S and G to figure out what the best ways are for corporate America to avoid those risks. Well, all these warnings about what's happening with fossil fuel and with climate change that scientists have known about forever, they are now so real and so immediate that they are within the zone where a fiduciary, a corporation with an obligation to its shareholders, a bank with an obligation to its customers, has to take the climate danger into account. If you're writing 30-year mortgages, you got to look out 30 years, and within 30 years, climate looks like it's going to be a nightmare. So this risk is now real. It is on the fiduciary horizon, and the fossil fuel industry can't stand it. So they're trying to break the rules of the market. They're trying to undo ESG. They want the government to intervene in what corporations are doing to protect their shareholders and tell them the truth about market risk consistent with their fiduciary obligations. They want to break every step in that chain to protect their continued ability to pollute. So watch this ESG nonsense. The anti-ESG, so-called woke corporatism is a fake. It is a Broadway theatrical production minus being on Broadway and being in a theater. But it's got actors paid for by the fossil fuel industry. It's got script writers who are telling them what to say. It's got directors and producers who are driving the show behind the scenes. It is an operation. It is a fake. It is a piece of political theater. And we've got to be willing to push back against that, because you can't take these kind of chances with the climate risks that we are now facing. And by the way, this objection to ESG, it is never about the G. It is never about the S. It is always about the E, the environmental piece. And within the environmental piece, it is always about carbon emissions. That is a telltale as to who is behind the anti-ESG political operation that is ongoing in America right now. With that, I yield the floor. I hope we have a strong vote to knock this down. I'm delighted that President Biden is going to veto this. This would be self-harm if we were to allow this to happen to our country. Thank you.